Hello and welcome back to another episode of Purpose Through Fitness, a community designed to encourage you to live a more positive, happy, and healthy lifestyle. We are going to uncover secrets of the body, the mind, and the spirit to help put you in the best position possible to live a more purposeful life. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Purpose Through Fitness. I'm extremely humbled and blessed to have my next guest on the show, Anthony Trucks. He is a former NFL athlete, American Ninja Warrior, international speaker, and founder of the Identity Shift coaching program. He has overcome obstacles his entire life, and in doing so, has found his true purpose. Anthony, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
So I want to jump right into this here. Let my listeners know a little backstory about you, where you come from, and what led you into becoming a life coach.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never been called a life coach. It's interesting to hear that way. I wonder if I am. I don't know. So the work that I do, it affects your life, but I'm an identity shift coach, man. That's where I work. More so because we all have an identity, and our identity, as much as we think it's this kind of arbitrary, non-tangible thing, it quite literally is who we are. It's how we operate and do our things, and that's just pretty much how it works. So, I started this kind of on accident. That's how usually life works, right? You start these things you didn't plan on doing, and all of a sudden these things end up being your life. And so the way it worked for me was years ago, when I was 3 years old, I was given away into foster care, felt like I didn't matter, which we all get to that point at some time. Unfortunately, my life started that way. Bounced around from house to house for a few years, had a lot of really heinous things happen to me as a kid. 6 years old, I was pretty shut down at that age. And then I got put into a family, which is my family now. So I always had these identity issues of who am I, foster kid, and this new family, I'm the only a black person in an all white family. So I have this identity of it's a diversity issue. And, we were really poor, didn't have much. So I spent the earlier programming years of who I am just dealing with a whole lot of crazy. And then at 14 years old, I got adopted. So it was the first time I knew that where I was waking up this morning, I would go to bed tonight. Different kind of feeling. And then I progressed on to play football for the first time. I always wanted to play, but my real mom wouldn't let me play. Finally could play. Sucked really bad. Like a lot of people, you try something you want to do, and then you do it, you're like, oh, I'm not very good at this, and you run away from it. But for me, I had a couple of years of running away, and then had this awakening moment by somebody saying some interesting statement that kind of sparked this, I don't want to be a nobody kind of thought. And it turned my direction of effort towards just trying to be great by doing what great people do in football, for example. And I did, man. I put all this effort in and work in, and it created this different internal Anthony based on the work I did. And I came back the next year an animal. Ended up getting a college scholarship, went to the University of Oregon, played football there, had my son at 20, met my real dad at 21, had to deal with building this sense of confidence of self over the years. Got an awesome capability and opportunity to play in the NFL. I was there 3 years with 3 different teams. NFL stands for not for long. You get in, you get hurt, you get out. Third year, went home on an injury, had a major identity crisis. I don't know who I am, where I fit, who's Anthony without football, right? Had a wife. We had 3 kids at this point, 9 months into this gym business I decided to open, and it was struggling. Marriage was failing. I was neglecting my wife. Lost my marriage. Business always was up and down. Became a bad father, out of shape. Just everything you can imagine that just goes wrong to where I don't know who I am or why I'm even here anymore. I'm sure you can attest. And you start just why am I even going through this? And for me, it was worse. When you have the NFL as the pinnacle peak, what else are you going to do that gets you back there? What else makes you feel good when you haven't been at that tippy top anymore? And so went down, almost took my life, and had somebody plant a seed of man, that was a stupid choice to even say you're going to do it. Didn't take any actions. Just had this wave of pain. I just sent a message and drove off, and thankfully I was able to not find a store open late enough to provide the rat poison I was looking for. And just the wave of pain kind of subsided, and I was able to have people find me and, just kind of bring me out of that space. And so a seed was planted by a buddy who was pretty much telling me I was an inspiration to people by how I'd lived my life, what I'd gone through. And I never thought that would be something of use for people. And it wasn't even the time for me to do anything with it, but the seed got planted. It was watered 4 years, 3-4 years later, after just honestly a fog of life. Because we got troubles, it's a fog, man. You just kind of you just go into the emotions, and it's not fun and enjoyable. So I'm running this business I don't love. I have this marriage that fell apart, and I'm sleeping around because that's just what I guess you do when you're single. And it's just like this weird thing that didn't feel right. My mom passed away in 2014. It was like this moment of waking up of like, dude, this is crazy. Like, I love how you said for you, it's people trying to find their potential. For me, it's the same, man. Like I am who I am because of my mom. Statistically, if you look at any prison in America, 75% of the inmates are former foster kids. 50% of the homeless population has spent time in foster care. 1% of foster kids are able to, even graduate college or less. So statistically, this woman, she helped me reach a potential far beyond what I could do. And she did it because she unconditionally loved me past crazy. I was a crazy little kid, man. She did not have to keep me. But what sucked is like when she passed, her body didn't allow her to reach her full potential. She passed of MS. And I was like, man, looking at that, knowing what happened to her and how fast, like she passed at 47, how fast life can be. I was like, I got to see what life has in store for me. So I started trying to figure out who I am, how I have to operate. And it took me a couple more years, because that's how life works, right? You want to change something, you start working, you find out like, this is the wrong work. Like, this is not what I needed to be doing. And I found out that I really needed to take a look at all the aspects of my life that were busted, and the common denominator, which was bing, 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 me. So I was like, this guy got to figure these things out. So in the work I do of identity, a metaphor I use is a computer. Like, the computer has hardware, and then it has the software. The software isn't updated. The programs can't work. They crash. So for me, it's like, in life, I got to this point where all my programs eventually stopped working. The relationship program, the health program, the income program, the parenting program, they all got that spinning wheel of death. And I had to do what a computer does, download the update. What do you got to work on it? And that was the thing that made the change. I was doing the work, but the wrong work. But when I got a chance to see it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's the stuff I need to work. I downloaded the issues, uploaded the right actions, adjusted my life, and was able to, after divorce for 3 years, got my marriage back together. It's incredibly strong. I got an amazing family with present kids in my household. I got a healthy body, a thriving business. I get to go and speak and talk and share. And it really goes back to me unpacking my life and the different identity shifts I've gone through between all of them, like as a kid and then as an adult, of married and, the good business, bad business, unmarried, divorced, remarried, same woman, like these different parts of the identity, to where like a lot of people get stuck at one of those in life and never make it out. But I somehow had this weird knack to move through it. So I went back and said, what did I do? And then how does that tie to neuroscience and psychology? And how do we create simplistic structure for people to follow to make those shifts themselves? Because what I call is an identity shift into the ideal identity for your dream. Like closing, I call an identity gap. You have these gaps between the person that has all the things that I want, the house, the life, the car, right? And if I was that person, I already have those things. I just would if I was that person. We're on the other side, though, wanting to have those things. And what happens is when you make the shift of different aspects of your identity, you close the gap and you run into becoming that ideal identity. And you're living in that space, having those things. And it actually feels easier than the stress and overwhelm you have now. So you have all the success and almost none of the same stress or problems internally. And life is good. So that's what I get to go back and make use of from my craziness in life to really provide something cool for people to walk through that's impactful to their businesses, their marriages, and everything else in between.
Wow. What an incredible story there. And I love the analogy of using the computer. I think that's a great analogy to use there. Something I kind of want to touch on with the NFL and even with running your gym and having a failed business, what kind of thought process or what actions did you take from those failures that you learned from most when applying to the Identity Shift program?
Yeah, it's interesting is I didn't at the time. I'm always the guy that looks back and I wish I could say, in that moment, what I planned out was, and that wasn't the case. That's not where I'd be lying if I said that. But I did get to a place where I took the long route. I didn't know the shortcuts, and I provide shortcuts now, right? But I took the long route, which means I understand the depth of stuff and where I should have made different turns, right? But here's what I found about failure years later, was failure is not finite. It's not a black and white situation. A lot of people think it is, but failure has multiple levels. In fact, there's 6 levels to it. And those 6 levels, if you place the failure in the wrong bucket, you never progress past it. You get stuck at that place. And so the top failure, the very top level, is called abject. It's the end of the world, can't be fixed. It's his death, pumpkin smash. I cut the watermelon. You can't put it back together kind of thing. It's the end. Then you have structural, a big important piece broke, but the whole thing didn't fall apart. Mm-hmm. Then you have glorious, smoke a stove, watch it burn, baby. Like, this is going on. And those three, most of the time we just walk away from it like, I had no control. It was all bad, whatever. I'm just going to walk on. I don't learn. It just sucks. I don't want to feel it. So I just walk away from it. Then you have the other three, and these are kind of like the lower level three. And one of them is called common failure. The reason an apology was created, like, I messed up, my bad. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. I learned from it. Then you have what's called version failure. You put the best version out, the best you could at that moment, but the failure was ability to give you feedback for version 2 and version 3 over and over. Then you have what's called predictable. I go into it knowing it's going to go wrong. Like I assume that when I create this, it's going to be something broken, and it gives me kind of like a pause and an ease to go and pursue something. The problem is a lot of people, they take everything that should be in the lower levels, common, version, or predictable, and they put it up too high. So my marriage fell apart. It was abject, end of the world, not fixable, right? Or it's structural, if you want to call it that. Broken can never be fixed. So because of that, I never learned what version of Anthony was affecting the outcome. So when I went and looked and said, okay, this sucks, but there's a version of Anthony that was in that marriage that made it fall apart. What was that version? What did he do? What can I learn to make version 2.0 better? And I'm on version 50.0 because every day it feels like there's something new. My wife was like, do this better. I'm like, all right, I'll figure it out. And so that's the idea. And it's not a changing of a person, but it's upgrading how you operate. It's really what it is, like a computer still. And then you have people like the career, lost my job and, I could never get a job again. No, that was you made a mistake. You didn't do this. And that person kind of sucks. So apologize, go to the next career, stay in the same industry, right? Or if it's predictable in business, I've learned now that business is predictable failure. In a sense, I should expect things to go wrong. Some people spend so much time trying to create something and put it into the world for it to be perfect. And the world comes back and says it sucks, and they cave. They never go back and try it again. They never perfect. They never get this dream realized, right? So for me, it's no, almost all business for me, that's predictable. You're putting something out to have the world perfect it for you. Tell you what you want, what they want. Tell them what's based. Tell you what's broken. Don't take feedback as you suck. Take it as you have an opportunity to make it better, to change my life, right? But if you put it in predictable, it's easy to put it out there and not have that fear of failure or the fear of judgment anymore because you're expecting it to go wrong. Yeah, you'll have some hard conversations, but that's how the iPhone 11 exists. They put this phone out to the masses, put it out version 1.0, and people said, oh, but I don't like this button and this thing doesn't work. And then we just keep getting new versions. And if you think about life like that, it gives you freedom to create more, to take bigger leaps, and to fail more often. It's not as scary because now you're going into it knowing why, if it fails, you have a reason to make it positive.
I love that. And that's actually something that I'm really trying to encourage people is to kind of change their mindset shift on failure in general. Failure is not necessarily a bad thing if you learn from it and learn how to apply that to your future successes. Where do you think that deep fear of failure comes from with people? Is it more the judgment side of things? Where do you think, or why do you think most people really have that deep fear of failure?
I think it's a comparison aspect. It's how is someone going to compare me to this version that I think that they have of me, right? Is it going to take away from the person that I've showed my persona to be to the world? Because if I put it out there and then it falls and it fails and that's who I am, that's a problem. So part of the failure is how I'm seen. But also part of the failure is a self-worth thing, I think. So in my life, I looked at it as my football thing and the relationship thing. These are all fruits on the tree. They're juicy. You love them. It's delicious, right? It's the fruit of the tree. And if this thing fails, it's this fruit fell off the tree and it withered and it died on the ground and it sucks because I'm this piece of fruit. So I suck. I suck because this thing sucks. But the reality is, and it took me years to get this, was I am not the fruit. I am the tree. I created the fruit. I made the relationship happen. I made the career football happen. I made the business happen. I made all that happen. So if you go to that logic, says, all right, what did I do to make the fruit the first time? Oh, well, I watered the roots and then I pruned the branches and then, I made it all operational. I learned how to take care of the tree and it could produce better fruit. So at this point in my life, I'm in a realization of the NFL wasn't the peak of my life. It was the first branch of fruit. And I learned how to make fruit. And now I'm oh, I can make more fruit. That's better the feeling for me than this NFL thing. That's a cool thrill. but there's only so much joy I can get from it, besides tackling some, it's that feeling, and then, maybe the articles and the news and the money, but after that, it does fall away. Like, everybody has to retire at some point. Then what? If you're the fruit, you fall apart. If you're the tree, you keep blossoming.
I really like the idea of not identifying with your fruit, so to speak, there, because I think that's a very common, I don't want to necessarily say failure, but shortcoming of a lot of people is where they will identify with that. If you put out, a new product or idea that you have and it doesn't go as successfully as you want to, they put all of their identity into that. And they might say, well, why did I even try? I'm just a failure. I should have never have attempted this. And they don't apply things that they could learn and use that towards something new. I think anybody who's ever, created a business or new product, new service, idea, or whatever it is, they've gone through many bouts of failure before they actually had success. So I like that analogy there, because again, one of my primary focal points to let people know is failure is not necessarily a bad thing. It's something that should be embraced, because no one makes it through life without failing in some way, shape, or form.
True.
So I got to ask you here, going through the childhood that you did, going through foster care, being adopted, having to overcome all these obstacles, what do you feel that put you in a better position to be able to overcome some of the later obstacles, the NFL failure, the business and things like that? Do you think having the childhood you did actually helped make you strong enough to be able to handle that?
Most definitely. I think that is the problem with kids that grow up like me is we inherently believe we're less than, because the person that was supposed to love us told us and showed us we were less than. So you have this always, you're trying to battle internally. And then I got to the point of being older, and I might have my breaking point, right? But then that took a lot to get to my breaking point. And so for some people, it's like just the job alone is enough, or just the relationship. It took my career, my business, my parenting, my body, and my marriage to fall apart before I drove off from that night. Where some people, it could take just the parenting, or it could take just a relationship. So I'm not, and this is not to say that I'm better. It's not even close what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the extent that I could be stretched before I snap is way different. And it's because of having the troubles early. So there's this statement I love that it says, a smooth sea makes not a skilled sailor. Which is essentially saying, when you haven't been out to rough seas, the first time a storm hits, you're probably going to capsize because you have no experience with the seas. So for me, I've been in rough seas, man, since I was 3. Literally, from my first memories of life, I've been in rough seas, man. Because every success, most people think, oh no, but you had success, you got a college scholarship. Yeah, but that presented more problems. Now I'm a target to people at school. Now I'm a target to the media. Now I'm in a situation with the eyes on me. There's more stress. There's more responsibility. I could falter. Then I have a kid, and I have to go to the NFL. Great, NFL. Not for long, man. You're in there, you're out. People every day, you got stress of, can I keep this job? Or they'll tell you every day they're going to cut you. They got 10,000 people who want your job. If you lose that job, you have no idea if those 32 teams will pick you up. One of them. It's just stress. Oh, you had a business. Yeah, now I got to pay payroll. I'm on the neck for hundreds of thousands of dollars for rent. If I don't pay the bills. So it looks beautiful. But the thing is when I, as a young kid, was navigating rough seas, a lot of the kids like me, they fall apart because we think that we're worthless, when the reality is we got a dang superpower, man. The ability to navigate things emotionally, to have charisma, to communicate. There are a lot of more survival skills back then, but now, so I could talk to anybody about anything and have a great conversation. I have this different sense of self and confidence because I know that when problems occur, I bring me to those problems. Not if they do, but when. And so that's only because I keep going out to sea and battling the storms. So where everybody else is bolting down and going crazy, I'm sipping on tea, man. And it's not a special Anthony special thing. It's just that Anthony decided not to run from the problems. I decided to, dig my heels in and go to work in them. And I developed these skill sets. And that's really the only difference between me and a lot of people, is my point of being stretched to the maximum is just farther than most. And it's only because I stayed in the problem longer.
Wow. I love that. And, something that I find really interesting, and, a lot of people that might be in, personal development, whether they be coaches whatever it may be, we always have this general idea or consensus that we want to try and end suffering for people. We want to help them get through their rough times. And it seems every single time I encounter someone who had some kind of rough childhood and was able to make it through, those tend to be the strongest people, the ones that are able to deal with a lot of these lessons that they learn or the failures that they may come across later in life. And I find it interesting because I always think to myself, I don't want any kid to suffer, and I don't. But at the same point, if the kid can be encouraged in the right way, as you said, you had a mother who was very loving, which I think is extremely important. If you can find some mental shift to understand that the situation you're in doesn't necessarily define who you are, it just leads you to becoming a much stronger person down the road and being able to handle what most adults really can't handle.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that's the reality that's going to happen. But I think there's also this point where people hear that. I know somebody's listening going, yeah, but I didn't have a hard childhood. Like, am I doomed to have, failures? No, because every single failure is a lesson, right? And it's always relative. What was, a 10 of pain to you might be a 5 to me. And what might be a 5 to me could be a 10 to you. And that's okay. But I think the beauty of our world nowadays is like, you can learn the lesson. Like I went through the pain. Like Jay-Z said, I sold crack so you ain't got to, right? Like, let me teach you, learn this lesson. And then from learning this lesson, now you can I don't got to go make that same mistake, but I can extract the same lesson. That's what books are made and videos are made. So learn the lessons, right? You don't have to be so like go out there and trudge ahead and do it on your own all the time. And so, yeah, even if you didn't have a bad childhood, it doesn't mean you don't have the places that you can learn the lessons that were within those. And then part of it is problematically, people will hear what I just said and they'll go through a situation in a relationship or something. And there will be a point where the information they've learned or someone trying to tell them will be beneficial to them in that moment, but their ego won't let them do the work. They'll say, no, it's not me. Like this would happen to me too. The ego pops up. So I could be in the middle of the relationship and fight and know, what, I'm not being very, compromising in this aspect here. And I really should do that. But, I just, my ego won't let me. So woman, shut up. That's what it turns into. And it's like, no, just in the moment, I wish people could do this in the moment when you realize you're wrong, as opposed to protecting your position, protect the relationship. Which means step back and be like, nah, I do this. My wife will tell you I do this. Like, all right, you're right. Not 100% of the time. But there'll be times where I'm like, you're right. And she's like, she gets more mad. She thinks I'm playing with her. I'm like, no, you are right. We can have this argument for the next hour, the next few days, or I can be honest. What you're saying is a valid point. And I should have done this, and this. And I'm realizing it now. And I don't want to fight anymore. Yes. But I don't want to be belligerent. My brain's telling me I'm wrong. And I'm not going to fight my brain and fight you and make it worse. So let's just, yeah, I'm wrong. Right. So I'll go in it. But here's the thing is, I think Fabulous says, he says, you can lose your pride over someone you love, but don't lose someone you love over your pride. And we do this a lot. We get our prideful and we cause fights and problems because our pride is hurt. Our ego is hurt. And I don't want to admit that book was right. I should do that thing. And it's hard to do that thing. That's not who I am just yet, but make it who you are. Do it. And it changes who you are immediately.
That's beautiful. I love how you brought up the ego there, because that to me, I tell people all the time, one of the most powerful shifts for me personally in my life was, no matter what situation I'm in, let's say, I might get in an argument with someone or, whatever the situation may be, after the situation is done, I always try and examine and say, what could I have done better? Even if maybe on the surface or consciously, I'm sitting there going, I think the other person may have been wrong. I still think it's very important that everybody goes, what could I have done better? Because we're not perfect. We can always improve in so many ways, shape, and form, that if you can do that, whether it be, like we said, an argument or, maybe somebody in a situation with a coworker or a boss or anything like that, if you can go back and examine what you can do to improve or what you could have done to make the situation better, I think that's very important to kind of put the ego aside and keep the ego at bay. Because you're right, the ego, when it pops up, it's very, very detrimental. We get into those habits where we know that we're right and we know that everything we did was the correct way and it was the other person's fault. And in doing that, it just creates a much more hostile situation.
when you're emotional like that, if you can't control your emotions, first off, an emotion's high, intelligence is low. When we get to an emotional space, happy or sad, we do dumb things. We say the wrong thing. We buy the wrong things, right? It's just like, we don't do smart stuff. And if you can't control the emotion, everybody else gets to. You give them the keys to drive you crazy because you can't manage your emotions. So you're at the whim of whatever they say. Like the world we're in nowadays, like I get messages nowadays, like racial, nigger messages in my inbox, which is, it's because it's hot times. And I got ladies send me messages of like, white lives matter. Like, so it's like, I get this. And in the middle of it, I'm like, oh, that's cute. Like they're trying to poke me. And I have this emotional control to say, man, two things. One, this person's got to be a really bad place in their life if they feel like this is what they're going to do with their free time. Like, I'm happy. I don't know any happy people who try to take other people down. I have never met a single one. So almost every person I meet that is like in that space of like just has disdain, there's something that is just, there's a part of you that's got to be unpacked, right? Second thing is, I don't have like I don't let that into my wall of life. I'm like, yeah, that's just another person that doesn't know me. They know someone that looks like me, had a bad experience. I'm like, they don't know me. And I'm not even in the space of like wanting to absorb that. Therefore, I'm like, all right, crazy person, move on with my day. So you don't give them the keys to drive you crazy. You don't let them have the ability to emotionally control you because they don't know you. And so there's certain ways that I look at, like even in arguments or things with my kids, it's like people say things, they try to dig at you, whatever it is. It's just like, all right, like, let's move on with the day. Because I don't like spending space and time in this area. So you actually have more control over how you experience your life. Because that actually is your life. Like how you make decisions, the actions and reactions, that's your experience. And the experience is your life. So if you don't have control of the experience, you have no control of your life.
Well, that's 100% correct. And that's almost taken a state of empathy with those people. Like you said, if somebody's going to spew hate at you, that person's the one that's miserable all the time. They're yelling all the time. They're the person that behind closed doors, when they're alone in the bathroom, they look in the mirror and they're upset with themselves. They're disgusted with themselves, but they have to let that anger out. And using that, letting that really take control of you is just a disservice to yourself and your overall health. So I love that mental shift there. Something I'd like to speak to you about is the story of how a former NFL player gets to try out for American Ninja Warrior.
What's funny is I didn't even try to do that. My wife did that, man. We had come back from a trip to Costa Rica and we were just bored. And apparently she started filling out some document. And then she tells me like, hey, I filled this form out for a TV show for you. I got like 90% of the way done. It just needs a video I need you to do. Now, I thought it was that show Wipeout, where like they speak a different language and have you fall on things and run around in the mud and make fun of you. I'm like, I'm not trying to do all that. She's like, no, it's something else. And I didn't even know of Ninja Warrior at the time. So I fill it out, do the little video, and it's like October, right? And then February comes. October, November, December, January, February comes. 5 months later, and I get this call out of the blue. Hey, you're going to be on this American Ninja Warrior. I'm like, I don't know what this is. What are we talking about? And they tell me what it is, and then when they call me, I'm 240 pounds. I have 30 days to get prepared. I've never been seen a Ninja Warrior obstacle in my life. Not even seen one up front. And so I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I go and I find a local spot. That day I was down at this local gym nearby, and I'd like try to cut weight to get down like 225 or something. And so I went on and I did it. And I was, when I did the interviews, there's like the interviews because they like the story. It's what they really love. It's a TV show. They love the stories. So they liked my story, the interracial kid and the foster care situation, and NFL, like I done some cool things. And after the interview, they're like, all right, go hit a buzzer. I'm like, I'm going to. They're like, sure you are. You're like, now, I didn't know this at the time. They were saying that because there's never been a former football player, NFL player, to ever get past 2 obstacles. They usually 2 obstacles and they're done. None of them ever got past 2. And so I go up there and I roll through, hit a buzzer. I'm the first former NFL athlete to hit a buzzer, only at this point hit a buzzer. So afterwards, they're like, that wasn't supposed to happen. They're like, I don't know what you did. They're like, that was definitely not supposed to happen. So they did a little home package, sent people to my house. Like, it was great for TV. So that was how it worked. And so I did it for 3 years. I retired this year, which is good because I couldn't even film the show. So it worked out. But I retired this year because my elbows can't handle all that, man. But I've never made it. I've never gotten out in the first round. So they usually bring 115 people. They cut it to 30. So they go city qualifiers to city finals. And so I've always made it to the city finals every year, but couldn't quite get to Vegas, man.
Love that. What would you say was the biggest thing you learned about yourself from a fitness level when starting to train for Ninja Warrior?
It's interesting. So me talking about potential, the thing I always had in my head, because I didn't know about the football players not making it, but in my head, I was like, you know what? I don't have the body size of these guys. Most of them are about 5'8", 5'9", $180 at most. Most of these guys are like 150, 160 pounds. The little girls are even tinier. The girls are like 100 pounds. So I'm walking in with 100 pounds on some of these people, and I'm 6'1". When I'm hanging on things, I have video. You can hear the whole thing creaking, and then never, it doesn't do it for anybody else. I'm just, So the thing that I learned about my fitness was this: is at the end of the day, you're trying to compete and use your body towards something. You compare yourself to the assets of somebody else, and it will diminish you. It's that whole Albert Einstein. If you take your entire life judging somebody, a fish, on their ability to climb a tree, they'll spend their whole life feeling they're stupid, but they could swim, right? So for me, I was like, all right, well, I'm not small as these guys. I can't do all the same stuff and hang as long, but here's what I do have. I got creepy grip strength, because when I was in college, my strength coach was big on no gloves, just barely chalk, just have great grip. So I got crazy grip strength. I got weirdly ridiculous body control that helps me like move my big body more than most that are my size. And I got range. I got wingspan on these guys. Like I have at least another foot or two where they have to go like for their whole body. I can almost just go and put my arm to the arm and go. And so I played to my strengths. I would look at stuff and say, how fast can I get through it? Because I can't hang as long as them, but I can get through it fast because I need less swings, or, I have just the body control to twist and contort like they might not be able to. And so I was able to get through. And so it taught me that for me, my body is capable of doing more than I think, simply because of the way that we try to typically box ourselves into what it can do based on somebody else's abilities. So I'm like, no, life and everything's a puzzle. How can I utilize what I have to be better at this thing than they can be, because they don't have my skill sets? It's the same in life, right? We always look at how can I tear this person down and be like them and compete with them. It's like, no. Find what you're phenomenal at that they can't touch, and then you win.
I'm glad you touched on that at the end, because this isn't even just a fitness thing. It's anything in life there. We get caught in this comparison game where it seems, we tend to look at someone else's life and say, I want that, and that. And it tends to get us to feel almost like, almost have a negative feeling on ourselves. We start judging ourselves and think we'll never be that. And it's like, no, you got to understand you're your own person. You're on your own journey. Like you said, play to your strengths. And I think that's very important. So before we do get into the rapid fire questions here and where people can find you, Anthony, for everyone out there that may be listening that's just struggling right now, whether it be working a job that they're miserable at, maybe struggling with a little bit of depression, what would you say, maybe 2 to 3 pieces of advice to kind of encourage someone to just take those next steps to being a little more positive and living a purposeful life?
I got you. So here's the way I live my life. And so my world is identity shift. Shift's this word I play on. I'm all about making shift happen, right? Get shift started. But here's the one that I think matters a lot. And it's, if you guys are listening, take this and apply it. It's simple, but it's a statement of own your shift. Now, own your shift, although you get it, like you hear, like I got all my problems, all my stuff, there's more depth to it. When I talk about the work I did in my life, shift was always the work. Like shift is the work I had to do to change my life. I had to see because I have what's called the shift method in my work. It's a curriculum I've developed. It's a model called the shift method. You have to see, then shift, and sustain. The shift is the work. But here's where probably, people have problems is they don't own their shift in a sense of, one, the 3 words are separate. Own means to own that there's a problem. Give yourself permission to work on it. Don't let the ego rear its head and shut you down and keep you stuck in this place of constant frustration because everything you do doesn't seem to get you where you want to be. So own that there's a problem that needs to be addressed, even if it's not your fault. Then and essentially what your means, it means it's your work to do. It's your responsibility to do the work. It may not be your fault, right? That's the thing most people don't grasp is you can get mad all day and blame somebody else, but the problem doesn't go away. It still persists. And so what happens is own that it's your responsibility to do it. Swallow the pride, do the work, like just realize it's on you. No one's going to come and drive to your house and start fixing your life. They got their own life to deal with. They're not going to fix yours. So your work. Now, there are a lot of people in life who realize there's a problem, realize it's their responsibility to fix it, and they go drown themselves in a bottle or drugs. They still don't want to fix it. It just looks like too much work. I don't care to deal with it. And then what happens is the longer you stay there, the longer you stay there. So shift. You got to do the work. So the shift aspect is you got to shift your actions, your reactions, and your habits. Those are all tied to your beliefs, your thoughts, your actions, and your personal pride. It's all woven together. But if you start by just shifting your perspectives on your life and then shift your actions, reactions, and habits, then your life will change. It's that simple, though. It's not, you have to go crazy deep with it. I have full programs that walk people through the step by step. But you can just start by that. I can shortcut it much more, but if you just take what I just said, that alone will give you some headway to start moving in the right direction.
Excellent. I think that's some beautiful advice there for everyone listening. Where can people find you, Anthony? How can they follow you? How could they, if they're interested in your coaching, how can they find you?
You can find me on anthonytrucks.com on the internet, the Googles of the world. And then if you go to Instagram at Anthony Trucks, and then DM me the word shift, and we will talk to you about what we can do to help you make shift happen.
Beautiful. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get into some rapid fire questions here. First few questions are just going to be a this or that. Give me which one your preference is. Last 5 questions are just the first thought that comes to mind or first thing you can think of. Okay.
All right. First thing comes to mind. First thing I think of.
All right. So first one here is coffee or tea?
Tea. I've never had a cup of coffee in my life.
Hey, we're similar in that regards. I think you're the only other person I've met that can say that.
That's why we're great.
Book or audiobook?
Audiobook all day. I love books, man, but if I'm not speed reading, I fall asleep.
Podcasts or music?
Depends on my season. I will say this: music is great for me to get creative with it, but I prefer podcasts to learn. I'm going to choose music if I got to put a gun to my head because I spend more time in music than I do in podcasts, but I spend a lot of time in audiobooks too.
Okay. How about when working out, podcasts or music?
Audiobooks. Here's the thing. I almost only do music whenever I'm doing short drives with a family or if I'm doing creative stuff at my work. And it's not even music that has words. It's electronic chill music.
Okay.
That's when I'm listening to music often. Besides that, it's straight audiobooks because podcasts are cool. I don't listen to many. I'll listen to Joe Rogan, right? Mm-hmm. But besides that, man, I'm straight audiobooks. Let me get the good goods, take notes and do something with it.
Beautiful. I like that. City or country?
Country.
Bungee jump or skydive?
Skydive. Never been to either, but I would prefer to skydive.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
People chew with their mouth open.
Favorite quote?
There are 2 types of people in this world, those that work and those that watch them at work. I don't mind the audience.
Ooh, I like that.
It's by Anthony Truck, by the way.
Love that. Best advice ever given?
It takes a little more to be a champion. We can get to the point of getting exhausted, but the champions have always done a little bit more in the dark that you don't see. So it's not just their capabilities, but it's the fact that when it gets to you and them at the line, they know that they deserve the wins. They will take nothing less than what they deserve.
Oh, that is beautiful. Okay, if you were to pick a celebrity to play you in a movie, who would it be?
Jessica Biel. I'm just joking.
The real colors come out.
I would go. Kevin Hart. He's a funny guy. I like him.
Okay.
No, he's not that tall. We'll go with it. We'll just put him on still.
All right. So this is always the toughest one here. In 10 words or less, let's say you pass away, you leave no legacy, leave nothing else behind but these 10 words. What would they be?
They would be, I've never had that question pop up. Usually I get a rapid fire, but I dabble between what I do it for business and for my life. I would say, here lies a man greater than the world believed possible.
Ooh, okay. I like that.
Was exactly 10.
That was perfect. Usually they either go way over that amount or they struggle coming up with it. So I thought that was absolutely perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I'd like to thank my guest Anthony for being on the show. Make sure you check him out on his website. Follow him on social media. He's got an incredible story. And at the end here, Anthony, I do just want to take a moment to actually acknowledge you. One thing I've learned just in this short period of us talking together and researching you is you put service to others at the forefront of what you're doing. I think that's very powerful and very needed in today's world. There's a lot of people who act from a very selfish standpoint, and they always try to take care of themselves and they don't try and help others along the way. And the fact that you found your purpose in service to others and helping others, I just think is extremely admirable. And I want to thank you for the work that you do and wish you all the blessings in the world as you continue to do it.
Thank you, man. Very welcome. I enjoyed this. It's what I found that I'm supposed to be doing here. So I love to do it.
Love that. Thanks again, Anthony.
No problem, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, I really hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Purpose Through Fitness with my guest, Anthony Trucks. He has an incredible testimony and story, and I'm so honored and humbled that he would join me on my show today. Now, as everyone knows, I do love ending my episodes with some kind of verse from the Bible that I find applicable to today's lesson or story. And what comes to mind for me is James chapter 1, verse 12, where he says, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." You see, ever since he was a very young child, Anthony has gone through many obstacles. He has faced many challenges that most of us will not understand in our lifetime. But each and every obstacle and challenge he faced, he was able to overcome and persevere. And it led him to where he is today, living a life in service to others. This is something admirable that I think each and every one of us can work on improving and making sure we do in our lives, not only to better our own lives, but to live in service to others. I am so happy and blessed that you joined me this week. Again, I hope you take something away from today's episode and apply it to your own life and start living a more positive and purposeful life. Many blessings, and I love you all.